Good evening. We will start with a motivation. In His Holiness's book, Compassion, How to Cultivate Compassion, he is describing that we human beings experience different kinds of suffering, or Venerable translates this as dukkha, and it might be temporal, or spiritual suffering, dukkha. So temporal dukkha is lacking resources we need to live, not getting what we would like, not feeling good about ourselves, and the human condition of being subject to aging, sickness, and death. And some of these may be due to structural prejudices in society, others are rather external conditions. And then also some are related to how we look at life. And then the other kind of dukkha is spiritual dukkha. So His Holiness describes this as a kind of angst because of not seeing the purpose in our life. And it is due to in part to lacking wise elders who shows us a reliable path to inner peace. And as we now, all beings want to be happy and not suffer, so we all want to remove, or we all try to remove our sufferings, our dukkha. So he's saying, everyone tries to remove superficial pain, but there's another class of techniques concerned with removing suffering, dukkha, on a deeper level. Spiritual practice is of this deeper type. These techniques involve an adjustment of attitude. So spiritual education basically means adjusting your thoughts in a beneficial way. This means that by adjusting counterproductive attitudes, you are held back from a particular kind of suffering, dukkha, and are thereby freed from it. Spiritual education protects or holds you and others back from misery. So first we have to understand our own situation, and then wanting to be free from dukkha. And through further practice on the basis of equanimity, we can develop compassion towards others, other sentient beings as well. And His Holiness is saying further that compassion makes not only yourself happier, it also diminishes the fears about your own pain and increases your inner strength. It gives you a sense of empowerment, of being able to accomplish your task. And I would like to share a story that he shared in that book that might give you a good example of how you can apply that yourself. So he's saying, several years ago, when I was in Bodh Gaya, India, I fell ill from a chronic intestinal infection. On the way to the hospital, the pain in my abdomen was severe, and I was sweating a great deal. The car was passing through the area of Vulture's Peak, where Buddha once taught. In general, Bihar state is poor, but this particular area is even more so. I did not even see children going to or coming from school, just poverty and sickness. I have a very clear memory of a small boy with polio who had rusty metal braces on his legs and metal crutches up to his armpits. It was obvious that he had no one to look after him. A little later on, we drove past an old man at a tea stop, wearing only a dirty piece of cloth, falling to the ground, left to lie there with no one to take care of him. Later, at the hospital, my thoughts kept circling on what I had seen, reflecting on how sad it was that here I had people to take care of me, but those poor people had no one. That is where my thoughts went, rather than to my own suffering. In this way, though my body underwent a lot of pain, a hole had opened in my intestinal wall, my mind did not suffer any fear or discomfort. My concern was elsewhere. If I had concentrated on my own problems, it would only have made the situation worse. When your perspective includes the suffering of limitless beings, your own suffering looks comparatively small. Compassion strengthens your outlook, and with that courage, you become more relaxed. Maybe take this as an example to focus on the review on Venerable's teachings, that this will only help us to improve, to reflect upon more, to integrate it in our mind stream, to be able to develop compassion so that we can, just like His Holiness, overcome our dukkha, our personal pain, and extend our compassion to others. So tonight I will go with you through the Gomchen Lamrim on the training the mind on the stages of the path of great beings. So it's on page 47, at least on my page, point 4b, 2b3. So if you want to look it up. And then after a bit going through that, what Venerable taught, so I will just review what she taught. And I have a lot of questions for you to keep you active in that process. Then she's going into Chandrakirti's homage of compassion. And I will review that with you as well, because she gave us the instructions to get familiar with that praise. We have it here in Chenrezig Hall in the entrance, right behind Kuan Ying's statue. And she said it is good for us to know what the verses are saying for us here as residents. If we have guests coming by who ask us, what does it mean that we that we don't just do this, we know something. And general, to be able to contemplate upon it, because these verses entail a lot. So she gave on 2 evenings teachings on that, and she summarized it as well. She shared that it would be very worthwhile to do a retreat on that. And then also I have some meditations that we could do in between that relate to those verses, and a general compassion meditation. So we'll see how far we get. So, training the mind on the stages of the path of great beings, showing the bodhicitta to be the soul gateway to the great vehicle. It's the under point 3.1. So here, Gomchen Lamrim Trakpa continues saying, showing the bodhicitta to be the soul gateway to the great vehicle, so the universal vehicle, the Mahayana vehicle. Even if you attain simple liberation upon the Buddha's urging, you will have to enter the great vehicle, he's saying. And Venerable commented on that, and she said, so even if you become an arhat, a liberated being, and recite in your own meditation equipoise on nature of reality, at some point the Buddha is coming, wake you up, and reminding you that there are other sentient beings who have been kind to you, and you need to take care of them. So you can't stay stuck in your own liberation. And she said it in another context, not in her commentary on those evenings. I found it somewhere else. She recited Martin Luther King, and I found that very inspiring. That fits very well to that context here. Martin Luther King said, "We must all learn to live together as brothers," and we can add sisters, "or we will perish together as fools." This is the great challenge of the hour. This is true of individuals. It is true of nations. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. And she's saying, or asking us, how do we live together as brothers and sisters? And I would like to turn the attention to you. What do you think? What do we need?
Consideration for others.
Do we need the mic? Consideration for others. If it's short, I can repeat.
Respect.
Respect.
Kindness.
Kindness. Empathy. Tolerance. Equanimity. Understanding. Patience. Love. Acceptance. Hard work, humor. She says the answer is to live with compassion. And this is an open heart that cares for others, because our lives are connected with others, and because each one of us equally wants happiness and not suffer. So further, Gomchen Lamrim is saying, those inspired by pure altruism enter the vehicle taught by the conqueror Shakyamuni out of compassion. So the vehicle taught by Buddha Shakyamuni is the universal vehicle of the Mahayana. And why do we enter that? Out of compassion, yeah. Gomchen Lamrim continues, it, so bodhicitta, is the source of all goodness, your own and others. So how does that come about due to bodhicitta? So everything that is good in the universe comes through bodhicitta. So my question is, how does it come about due to bodhicitta?
Well, when you think about the bodhicitta has two sort of aspirations. One is to become awakened, and the other one is because the wish to benefit all sentient beings. So if you were to put your mind on those two attainments, the result would be a goodness in the world that every being would experience, and that would come to fruition.
Yeah. So there are two motivations to wanting to benefit sentient beings and to attain awakening for that purpose. And
well, it's both.
Yeah.
To attain awakening and
yes.
to do it for the sole purpose in order to have the skill and the means to be of
In
greatest
order to have the skill and means to be of greatest benefit.
And so all the good in the world would be a result of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit, interestingly, she went a little bit different way. She said the whole idea is we sentient beings want to be happy, don't want to suffer, but our mind is so obscured by the ignorance that we can't see clearly what are the causes of happiness and what are the causes of suffering. So we kind of stumble around like blind people, thinking that the cause of happiness is getting everything that we want and pushing away a way that threatens us. So she reminds us that we are the plant people. And so how to create happiness? She was relating it to creating virtues. So she's saying, well, somebody has to teach us. We have to learn what the causes of happiness are, what are the causes of suffering. So we hear virtues is the cause of happiness, non-virtues is the cause of suffering. But what does virtues mean? So we have to have the right understanding what virtues is. And then, here it comes, we have to learn, and so we trace back our own virtues in that way. Then we see it must have originated with the Buddha, with the Buddha's teachings. Somebody, and those, with the Buddha's teaching, and those teachings getting passed down, and so on. And eventually somebody is teaching us, and then us thinking about it and acting in that way. So that comes from the Buddha's teaching, and the Buddha's teachings are supported by bodhicitta. So that's why it's saying bodhicitta is the source of all goodness, your own and others. So then Navang Thakpa says, and the sole path traveled by all wise. That means there are certain things that create the causes to become full awakened, such as bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, realizing emptiness. So we have to be in contact with these traditions, learn, think about the teachings and meditate upon them and put them into practice. So then, by working for others' welfare, you achieve your own naturally, Gomchen Lamrim Thakpa is saying. So how do we do that? By working for others' welfare, you achieve your own naturally. How does it work?
By freeing our mind from the self-centered thought.
Mm-hmm. By freeing our mind from the self-centered thought.
It's always called
Intelligent egoism. So His Holiness is saying, being wisely selfish.
Intelligent egoism.
The first one was, Lama Supa Rinpoche was saying, all happiness comes from cherishing others. So she puts it just in a little bit, it's a similar context, but I would like to share how she explained that. When we give up this constant, I want this, I want that, when we work for others' welfare sincerely, then the results come automatically. The more we think about me, 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 I want this, I want that, the more we focus that way, the more we don't actualize our own happiness, because we can never succeed in controlling everybody else. So we are always frustrated because these dumb sentient beings don't do things my way. So that's why Gomchen Lamrim Thakpa says, but by working for others' welfare, you achieve your own goal. Remarkable. Then we continue with how to develop that aspiration, showing that compassion is the root of the path of the great vehicle. So first of all, what is compassion? The wish for sentient beings to be free from suffering and its causes. Yeah. It's not emotion, it's intention. So, what really is suffering? What is dukkha?
I don't know which ones. We have all sorts of dukkha.
Yes, you can start with that if you like.
That one?
Yeah.
Well, the one that's the most obvious is
Thanks.
the one that's most obvious for I think all living beings, is the dukkha of just physical and mental gross suffering. That's experienced by everybody. And then there's the dukkha of change, which no matter whatever we're going after, sooner or later is going to fall apart, separate, degenerate, go away. So we put all of our eggs in one basket and it never lasts. So there's just the dukkha of simply trying to find happiness in all the wrong places. And then the third one is the all-pervasive compounded dukkha, just because we got these bodies that are get old, sick, and die, and these minds that are so crazy-making that we're set up for that third kind of dukkha.
Yes. So she wanted to make clear that what we usually think is that the causes of suffering are other people. So, Gomchen Lamrim continues, compassion for the harvest that is the state of a conqueror is like the seed, the moisture, the fertilizer, and the ripe fruit. So where did you hear that before? Chandrakirti's homage to compassion, great compassion. Right. And we have this homage in Chandresi Hall in the entrance, so everybody can see that. That was an inspiration by Venerable Shudran to have that there. And she inspired us, she asked us, to get familiar with those verses. And she gave a commentary on that. She went through verse by verse so that we really can understand and be able to reflect upon them, meditate upon them, and hopefully put them into practice. So we will just do that. We will do a review of what she taught. I would just like to read the verses. Hearers and solitary realizers arise from the excellent sages, the Buddhas. The excellent sages, the Buddhas, are born from bodhisattvas, the compassionate mind and the non-dual awareness, as well as bodhicitta. These are the causes of bodhisattvas. Compassion alone is seen as the seed of the conqueror's rich harvest, as water that nourishes it, and as the ripened fruit that is the source of long enjoyment. Therefore, at the start, I praise great compassion. Like a water wheel in motion, my creators have no autonomy. First with the thought, I, they cling to the self. Then with the thought, mine, they become attached to things. I bow to this compassion that cares for my creators. Homage to that compassion of my creators, seen as evanescent and empty of inherent existence, like a reflection in the moon rippling in water. So the first verse says, the hearers and solitary realizers arise from the excellent sages, the Buddhas. The excellent sages are born from bodhisattvas. So when I was saying that in Buddhism we talk about 3 vehicles, the paths people can follow. So the Hura path, that's the path to personal liberation, and the solitary realizer path as well. And then the third path, the bodhisattva path, that leads to full awakening. So here it's saying that the hearers and solitary realizers arise from the excellent sages. Who are the Buddhas? It says the Buddhas are the cause of the hearers and solitary realizers. So what does that mean? What do you think? The Buddhas give the teachings to the hearers. Yes. So the hearers and solitary realizers come from the Buddhas by practicing the teachings the Buddha gave. Then the next verse says, the excellent sages, meaning the Buddhas, are born from bodhisattvas. Now what does that mean? What are bodhisattvas?
Aspiring to be Buddhas.
They are aspiring to be Buddhas. Bodhisattvas will become Buddhas. So she said, just to use the right terminology and thinking beings who have generated bodhicitta, that altruistic intention, aspiring for full awakening, and they are once practicing the path of the great vehicle or universal vehicle. The bodhisattvas are the people who are practicing to become Buddhas. So the Buddha and the bodhisattvas becoming the Buddhas, that's more the substantial cause. So then the next verse says, the compassionate mind and the non-dual awareness as well as the bodhicitta, these are the causes of bodhisattvas. Now, where have you heard that before? Yeah, precious garland. It's verse 174 and 175. It's saying, therefore, refrain from what is not Dharma, heedfully practice the Dharma. If you and the world wish to attain an excellent awakening, its roots are bodhicitta that is as firm as the king of mountains, compassion that is as vast as space, and wisdom that relies not on duality. So, and the idea started off with Nagarjuna and has been repeated by Chandrakirti. So what are the three causes for bodhisattvas? Compassionate mind. Yes. Yes. And bodhicitta. Right. Contrived bodhicitta. Perfect. So Venerable Shutten goes into these causes in more detail. The first one is the compassionate mind. So we know that compassion is the cause for bodhicitta. So you can't have an altruistic intention wanting to attain full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings without having compassion. No way. So having equal compassion for everybody is not an easy thing, she's saying. We do have the ability to develop that kind of compassion, that equal-hearted compassion for all living beings. So we can accomplish it, even so it's difficult. And she's saying, and even if we can't actualize full compassion in this life, any little bit closer to compassion is beneficial. We know from our own experience that it will benefit us, it will benefit others, people who we live with. It benefits all living beings, and because she's saying, because one sentient being having a little bit of compassion can make a big difference. I like to invite you, maybe you know from your own experience, a story where you have seen that a bit of compassion can make a big difference in your life.
I remember I kind of got admonished for it, but it was a few years ago when they were building Chenrezig Hall. It was in the early spring. We'd had a lot of rain. And I started heading up to the meditation hall, and there were all these worms out on the road.
Oh, yeah.
So I ended up spending most of my time before going to practice, going down the road, and I was coming up with a handful of worms, and Venerable comes out of the cab and goes, "What are you doing, Venerable Samkhya?" I said, "I'm moving all the worms out of the road before Jeremiah comes up the road." And she said, "You should be in the hall." So I felt really good about what I was doing, but I think it was my presence that also I needed to understand that I was supposed to be up there and not out there hanging out with the worms on the road. But I really felt, I don't know, those small things, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know where they're going. And so I kind of got in over my head because I had dozens of them. I just was putting them off on the road, but that made me feel connected to them. That made me feel that somewhere in our lifetimes before we had been friends and parents and mothers to each other. Because I just have kind of critter care kind of karma. So that was kind of a cool morning. And but I ended up, putting them in a big pile in the dirt and heading back up to the hall. and benefiting people in, I guess, a different way.
Mhm. Thank you. Is there somebody else who wants to share a story? An experience? Okay, we go further. The second cause of compassion is the non-dual awareness. So what does non-dual awareness mean?
Freedom from the two extremes, nihilism and absolutism.
Freedom of the two extremes of nihilism and absolutism, correct? So can you explain that a little bit more in detail? What does it mean? Maybe you can take the microphone.
So freedom from the two extremes of nihilism and absolutism, meaning avoiding thinking that things are inherently existent,
Mm-hmm.
or that they're totally non-existent, which is an aspect of the wisdom realizing emptiness to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have to have complete understanding of that in order to have the understanding that those two extremes are false.
Mm-hmm. This is an intellectual understanding that like it's based on an inferential cognition, when I would say it. So that's what you need. Yeah, it's you don't have to be on the path of seeing for having realized that. You have to be. No, yeah, I think she said you don't have to be.
Actually, if it's the cause of a bodhisattva, it couldn't be, because the cause has to happen before
Right.
that.
Yeah.
He's referring to the shop.
Right. It's referring to the sharp faculty disciple. So the sharp faculty bodhisattvas in training, they realize that before they enter the bodhisattva vehicle. Yeah, Venerable said that. And what marks a sharp faculty disciple? What, yeah, or marks, what, yeah.
In case they want to check out to see if the path is really the path.
Right. Yeah. Sharp faculty disciples are the ones that want to make sure that the path is something that can be attained before they wholeheartedly start engaging in it. So the bodhisattvas meditate on emptiness, but they also had a whole lot of teachings before that. They don't just start on the path of emptiness, Venerable was emphasizing, but they get, as I said, an intellectual understanding of emptiness by means of inferential cognition. And with that, they have the confidence that it's possible to realize emptiness and to use that realization to cleanse the mind of all the afflictions. So, sharp faculty bodhisattvas start out with an inferential realization before they realize bodhicitta. Then the third cause of bodhisattvas is bodhicitta, the awakened mind. So, how can bodhicitta be a cause of bodhisattvas? The sugar cane bark bodhicitta. Yes, there's a bodhicitta like sugar cane bark. That is contrived artificial bodhicitta that you have before you get actual bodhicitta. So what would be a good example of that? Venerable made it more to a modern example. Maybe you remember, because sugar cane bark is maybe a little bit foreign for us.
Ice cream
cream lid. She gave the example of the ice cream lid. Is there another example you can think about? Maybe the ice cream lid doesn't fit for everybody to
The
understand
top
it.
of a yogurt container too. Take off that piece of aluminum foil and you look off.
If it's good yogurt, at the top of a yogurt container.
What about the smell of a good meal? You know, it's good.
Ah,
You're only getting the smell.
the smell of a good meal. You know that it's a good meal, but you haven't yet eaten it, tasted it. Yeah, that's a good example. So it's fabricated bodhicitta, one that you are generating with effort. So to summarize it, the cause for Buddhas was the bodhisattvas, meaning the bodhisattvas are the substantial cause. And then what causes the bodhisattvas are the three factors. What again was it? Just to make sure you... The three causes again.
Compassion, non-dual awareness, and bodhicitta.
Thank you. Compassion, non-dual awareness, and bodhicitta. So then Shantakirti continues. Compassion alone is seen as the seed of a conqueror's rich harvest, as water that nourishes it, and as the ripened fruit that is a source of long enjoyment. Therefore, at the start, I praise compassion. So compassion here, it's talking about the three functions of compassion. It's a seed at the beginning of the path. It's the water and the fertilizer that makes the seed growing and keeps the sprout and makes the sprout keep growing in the middle of the path. And it's the ripened fruit that is the harvest of the path. So compassion is the seed for the path, because to get bodhicitta we have to have great compassion first. So what do we need to have in order to generate compassion?
Well, according to the teachings a few weeks ago, it's renunciation or determination to be free, because you can't.
It's renunciation, the determination to be free.
Without compassion for yourself.
Without compassion for yourself.
To free yourself from cyclic existence.
To free yourself from cyclic existence.
There's no way to generate then compassion.
Yeah, there's no way to generate compassion for other beings.
It was clear a few weeks ago.
And you have to do
Yes.
the practices of the initial
Let's
scope.
go.
And we have to do the practices of the initial
Truths.
scope, the Four Noble Truths, right?
That involves understanding dukkha.
That involves understanding dukkha, refuge, karma, exactly, yeah. Recognize others suffering dukkha and see them as lovable, yeah. Perfect. So, with compassion, when we are able to look at dukkha, the unsatisfactory condition, experiences in cyclic existence, and that both we face in other sentient beings, then compassion feels like I want to protect sentient beings from the misery of cyclic existence. I want to eliminate their sufferings. So compassion is more than just saying how wonderful it would be if they would be free of suffering and its causes. And then we go on, strengthen it a little bit more. May it be that way, and I will get involved and make it happen, make that happen. So this takes time and joyous effort, she emphasizes. So compassion is a seed that gets us going on the path, and compassion is also the water and fertilizer in the middle of the path. So when you are doing the bodhisattva practices, when we are practicing generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom, then we are practicing all those things. Bodhicitta is what underlies it and keeps us going. And then at the end of the path, the fruit, the Buddhas are so greatly habituated with great compassion, their enlightened activities will benefit us continuously Then the next verse says, like a water wheel in motion, my creators have no autonomy. So that's talking about one type of compassion called compassion observing sentient beings. It continues, with the thought I, they cling to a self. Then with the thought mine, they become attached to things. I bow to this compassion that cares for my creators. So this all refers to three kinds of compassion. And first of all, my creators are seen as evanescent, means fleeting, temporary, momentary, and empty of inherent existence, like the moon rippling in water. That's an example that's given here, an analogy. So the three compassions are compassions for sentient beings, called compassion observing sentient beings, compassion observing phenomena, and compassion observing the unapprehendable or the objectless. So the first compassion here, compassion observing sentient beings, here is comparing sentient beings caught in cyclic existence with a water wheel or a paddle wheel. So just as a bucket of water wheel is tied by a strong rope, she's saying sentient beings are tightly bound to cyclic existence by ignorance, afflictions, and karma. So we can visualize a bucket and this strong rope. And this rope keeps the bucket in place and controls its movement in the same way that our afflictions, our ignorance, our anger, our attachment, and so on, the karma we create from those things hold us. We don't have freedom, we don't have autonomy. Venerable Shudan says it very beautifully. So as we continually grasp at I and mine, the view of personal identity, then that pulley makes us go down in samsara and up and down. Then third is just as the water wheel continually goes up and down, sentient beings wander without end in cyclic existence from the highest material meditative absorption down to the lowest hell realm. And we have been born and will continue to be reborn in all these different realms of existence until we develop the compassionate wisdom that liberates us. The bucket is bound by ignorance, it's moved by the pulley, and it doesn't have its own freedom. So it goes up and down, so we go up and down in samsara. We know that what kind of rebirth we all have in we don't know what kind of rebirth we will have in our next life, next rebirth. All these things depend on our karma, and then they depend on which karma will ripen at the moment of death, because throughout our life we create many, many different kinds of karma, and what karma will ripen at the time of death, we don't know. So that's going to depend what kind of attitude we are having when we are dying, what we are thinking when we are dying, what kind of emotion we are having when we are dying. So therefore she's emphasizing that's very important. What kind of karma we are creating right now. So that will determine our next rebirth. Therefore we should watch our mind and not create more negative karma. And I would like to stop here and do a short meditation with the analogy of a water wheel, if you allow. Close your eyes. Come back to your breath. Short moments. So imagine a bucket traveling in a well, tied to a wheel, controlled by the operator, going down into the dark depths and up to the bright top over and over again, being drawn up with difficulty and strain and easily descending back down to the bottom, clattering against the sides of the well, being battered and broken as it swings. Just as a bucket is tied by a rope to the wheel, so we are bound by past actions, contaminated by the afflicted emotions of attachment, anger, ignorance. Just as the turning wheel depends upon a person operating it, so our wandering in samsara depends upon consciousness. Just as the bucket travels down to the bottom of the well and up to the top, so we travel among the stations of samsara, cyclic existence, being born over and over again. And we don't know what kind of form we will have in our next life, what kind of forms we had in our previous lives, where we are, where we will be reborn, where we have lived before as helping hungry ghosts, animals, humans, demigods, gods. So just as a bucket descends easily in the well, but is difficult to throw upward, even with hard work, so our own tendencies of mind, our attachment, anger, ignorance, are such that we are easily torn down into lower states of existence. So to interrupt that movement to the lower states and move towards the higher states of existence, we must make strong effort, put strong effort into our practice. Then the next and last verse says, homage to that compassion for my creators, seen as evanescent and empty of inherent existence, like the reflection of the moon in rippling water. So this verse talks about the last two kinds of compassion. Compassion observing phenomena and compassion observing the unapprehendable. So phenomena here means the 5 aggregates that make up sentient beings. Our body is the form aggregate, and then we have the 4 mental aggregates that are feeling, discrimination, miscellaneous factors, and the primary consciousness. So this compassion is not observing the aggregates, she's emphasizing it's observing sentient beings, but as qualified by being designated independent on the aggregates. So the migrators here are seen as transient, evanescent, transient, changing, impermanent. So there's an analogy. The moon changes every day, but even on a subtle level, the moon stays never the same, not even for a finger snap of moment. So when we realize that sentient beings change moment by moment, then we are able to negate the existence of a permanent, partless, independent self. There are 3 more ways of seeing sentient beings that fall under this category of compassion observing phenomena. It's as not seeing sentient beings as not a different entity or as the aggregates, as imputed on the mere collection of the aggregates, and also seeing that it's not a self-sufficient, substantially existent person. I will not go into more detail for now on that. That can be done by Venerable Sepp or Venerable Shutren or somebody of the other seniors here. Then the third kind of compassion, observing the unapprehendable. So if we go back to the first homage to the compassion for migrator seen as evanescent and empty of inherent existence, like a moon rippling in water. So in this third kind of compassion, the object is sentient beings qualified by being empty of inherent existence. So when I was saying, so this compassion is not directly perceiving emptiness. Rather, the person previously has been meditating on emptiness and come out of their meditation. Now they are cultivating compassion. But the way they are sentient beings is influenced, their seeing sentient beings is influenced by their meditation on emptiness. So they are seeing sentient beings as qualified by being empty of inherent existence. So when we see the reflection of the moon and water, when the water is really still, then it looks like there's a moon right there in the water. Right? So, and this analogy is just as sentient beings appear to be truly existent, that appearance is false. So now, sentient beings, seeing sentient beings as qualified by either impermanence or emptiness, rather than just seeing sentient beings suffering due to karma and afflictions, is that your opinion, changing the quality of your compassion? Yeah. So you could see sentient beings as being qualified by impermanence, or as seeing them as, just suffering due to their karma and afflictions. Will that change your quality of compassion?
By seeing them qualified by impermanence?
Yes.
And seeing them under the control of will that
or
change
seeing,
understanding
yes.
as a reality?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, so sentient beings are grasping onto their pleasure and thinking that's going to last. That's our problem. She's saying, there are so many sentient beings who have been kind to me, who want to be happy, but we have no clue that their own experience is that they are disintegrating moment to moment. So when you take a step further and see sentient beings are qualified by being empty of inherent existence, and that they have no clue that they are empty, so in fact they're grasping to an I, they grasp to a mind, they create so much karma, virtues and non-virtues by this kind of grasping to an I that does not exist. She compares it with us thinking there's a boogeyman, or having thought there's a boogeyman when we have been a child, or Santa Claus. And so, just like that, we think there is a boogeyman, but actually, now, or even as a child, we know there's absolutely no boogeyman, no Santa Claus. So it's the same way she's saying when we grasp at true existence. So there's no truly existent self. We don't need to defend anybody. We don't need to worry about anybody. But we suffer unnecessarily because of our ignorance, she's saying. And when we say we, she really emphasizes that we have to understand it's us included, really. So this suffering, dukkha, you can see it's based on fabrication. It's made due to our karma that's based on a pure hallucination of our mind. And so none of that dukkha is really necessary, she's saying. If we had wisdom to see that the person was empty of inherent existence, then we would stop causing, creating the cause for our own suffering. So when we really see that and how sentient beings suffer so much based on hallucination, then how can we not have compassion for them? And we need to have some compassion for ourselves in that process as well. So I would like to end this review with a meditation on compassion. And that would be, the end of this whole thing. Once again, take position. Come back to your breath for some moments. So begin this meditation with yourself. Imagine in front of you a replica of yourself. And reflect on the various sufferings, dukkha of pain, dukkha of change. And the dukkha, how do you say that in English? All pervasive, compounded dukkha. Thank you. See yourself in your own unhappiness due to being subject of human conditions such as sickness, the loss of a dear one, a sense of loneliness. And now wish yourself to be free from these conditions and their causes. Imagine what it would be like to be free from these. And really feel your newly found freedom from insecurity, from fear, anxiety, anger, emotional neediness, and also have a strong sense of freedom from ignorance. And then do the same reflection towards teachers or those you respect. First, be aware of the various suffering, dukkha, the unhappiness of the subject, such as sickness, loneliness, and extend that also to the subtler dukkhas that sentient beings experience. And turn that afterwards by imagining that they are free from these conditions and their causes. And then turn the attention to strangers. Maybe you drove to town today and just saw somebody, barely can remember the face, or you remember from another occasion a visitor you just have seen here at the Abbey or somewhere else. And do the same meditation. First reflect on the various dukkhas and the unhappiness of this being, and then go also into a subtler meditation on the three kinds of dukkhas, and then wish that person to be free from these conditions and their causes. Imagine them to be free from ignorance, insecurity, fear, anger, and such. Now we are going to be more courageous. We apply this meditation to those we don't like. People we disapprove of or feel threatened by, those who have harmed us in the past. And if we really have great difficulties applying that meditation, we remember that they did that harm due to their internal unhappiness. So it means people harm others when they're themselves unhappy and miserable. Imagine that this person would feel like what this person would feel like if she were free from that pain and misery. And then finally include all living beings in your meditation, wishing each of them to be free of all kinds of suffering and their causes, and rest your mind in the inner experience of having a compassionate heart. And to finish this practice, I would like to go back to what His Holiness has said in his compassion book. So, spiritual practice is, he's saying, is removing suffering on a deeper level. So these techniques involve an adjustment of attitude. So spiritual education basically means adjusting your thoughts in a beneficial way. This means that by adjusting counterproductive attitudes, you are held back from a particular kind of suffering and are thereby freed from it. Spiritual education protects or holds you and others back from misery. Thank you.